Matt, it's not often that we see fighters coming into the UFC with such extensive records making their respective UFC debuts, and that's not the case here. We have Malcolm X Gordon taking on Amir the Prince Albazi, and this is one of the fights that I'm most excited for on the card. People make fun of us in the comments and say that we're always excited for every fight. You're darn tootin' we are. Listen, how can you not be excited about this one? Malcolm Gordon, TKO champion, coming in here, taking on Amir Albazi that represents Iraq. I know in the fight with Brave, when he took on Jose Shorty Torres, that was a flag that he flew. Some places have him billed out of Sweden. He trains at London Shoot Fighters with such names as Michael Venom Page. He's got Fareed Basharat in his corner. Mike Shipman. The list goes on and on. Alfie Davies. There's Davis. There's a lot of really good fighters that train there. And again, yeah, it is a really good corner. Norbert Novny, huge prospect coming out of there that had a big win over Will Fleury with Bellator. But I digress because it has nothing to do with this flyweight fight. I'm excited about it because if you look over at Malcolm Gordon, he's taken on good competition. His last fight against Yoni Sherbatov, absolutely insane. And Malcolm Gordon kind of has two speeds. First speed, I'm going to blitz you. I'm going to land as many shots as I can, give one to take one, and if I get hit, I get hit. And that's what happened in the Sherbatov fight. Sherbatov caught him with a kick to the liver that really kind of doubled him over, was going in there, Hook City, kind of like Roy Jones. The fight ended up getting back against the cage. Gordon took him down, hurt Sherbatov somewhere in the takedown, gets himself to the back somehow. He was in full guard. Sure, they move. He grabs an arm. Then he ends up with a rear naked, and he just kind of springboards it back and gets a finish by rear naked choke. So he either does wild things like that, or he stays on the back foot. He'll pepper you with the jab. He'll move side to side. He can do a lot of things really well. There's a reason why you see these two speeds out of Malcolm Gordon. He trains out of Adrenaline MMA Training and Fitness in London, Ontario. Who's his head coach? Well, they have multiple coaches, but Bazooka Joe Valtellini is one of his coaches. And if you're not familiar with him, Glory Kickboxing commentator now, but at one point in time, one of the best kickboxers in the world. Just happens to be Canadian, like us. Now, who else does he have in his corner? Mark Hominick trains there. Sam Stouts trains there. And one guy that everybody always sleeps on had a fight against Donald Cowboy Cerrone, Chris Horodecki from WEC days. I was a big Horodecki fan. Still, I think this fight's really interesting because stylistically, they can fight at a similar pace. If you go back and watch the Albazi fight against Jose Shorty Torres, he lit him up on the feet, and vice versa. They traded. It was a pressure Torres that eventually kind of won him the fight and took the O from Albazi. Has a ton of finish wins on his record. So does Malcolm Gordon. The last thing I want to say about the competition that Malcolm Gordon's faced, early on in his career, he fought Chris Kaliadis that you might have seen in the UFC from Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada on the East Coast. But he's fought a lot of tough competition. Not to take away from anything that Albazi's done, this is just one of those fights that you rarely see where two guys are making their UFC debuts, and I couldn't be more excited for it. What do you have for me?
So, like you said, this could very well be for a title on any other promotion under the UFC or Bellator. Like, this really is how high of skill level both these guys are. Kind of wild that's taken this long for Malcolm Gordon to get into the UFC. 12-3 at 30 years of age. You would have liked to see him maybe get in a little bit earlier, but some guys like Yuri Prochazka, for instance, they offer you the contract. He says, no, I'd rather kind of develop my skill set more outside the UFC, and then once they do come, they can just kind of make their run to the title. So Malcolm Gordon might be in that same boat. I couldn't be more excited for this fight because, like you had mentioned, both guys' skill sets kind of match up pretty evenly. With Albazi, like you had mentioned that Shorty Torres fight, Torres was able to pressure him, even though they were both sort of doing the same on the feet, and they were matched up very well. It was just the pressure Torres kind of won out eventually. Albazi, ever since that fight, though, has kind of done that himself. He's really upped the pressure because he's not afraid to eat one, to give one. He likes to go forward, and he's a guy who's good no matter where the fight goes, very similar to Malcolm Gordon. So I do think this is going to be one of those cases where it's going to be strike, strike, strike. I don't think either guy's going to go for the takedown. I think it's going to be one of those cases of we're going to have a kickboxing fight until someone gets dropped, and then we go for submissions. I just don't think either guy's going to want to waste all that energy going for the takedown because offensively on the ground, they're both phenomenal. And offensively on the feet, they're both phenomenal. It's just defensively is a little bit to be desired on both parts. Both guys are very susceptible to being hit. And that's why I think this fight could be so exciting because you have guys who aren't afraid to throw hands, aren't afraid to eat a shot, to give a shot. And when both guys have that mindset coming into a fight, you know it's going to be fireworks.
Yeah, I mean, I just have to say, Yoni Sherbatov I held in really high regard, especially going into that fight. And it was up until Gordon hurt him on the takedown that Sherbatov was winning the fight. I really highly recommend you go back and watch TKO 47 to see that one. But overall, if you look over at the odds, Albazi's a minus 170 favorite, Malcolm Gordon plus 145. I was kind of surprised by that one because, again, they've taken on tough competition. I would think that this would be closer to a pick'em. I get it that Albazi is the favorite, the younger fighter. He has a loss in a second to last fight, but he's finishing a lot of guys, especially on the ground as well. And he's a very well-rounded fighter, not to say that they both aren't. And it's such a well-matched fight. Again, for UFC debut, it's kind of crazy that this is the one that we get. You'd think maybe they match Malcolm Gordon up with a guy like Tim Elliott or Ryan Benoit that we saw on Wednesday night, and Albazi, somebody kind of similar. But this is what we get. So again, really excited about this one. I've kind of gone through all of the notes on it. In terms of the votes, there's not a lot because this fight was just announced. Albazi coming in as a short notice replacement. 228 votes on Sherdog, not Sherdog, Shoutout, but Tapology. 67% going with Albazi, 76% predicting decision. What do you think on this one?
So I am going to side with the crowd. I do think Albazi's going to be able to get it done. It's probably going to be by decision, too. I could see both guys being able to get the finish, but the defense of Gordon is a problem. He gets hit a little bit too much for my liking, and I just think Albazi, it's not that he's this massive power threat by any means, but he's going to volume, and it's not always what the big shot that's going to hurt you. It's, okay, after 50, 60, 70 significant strikes, one of those is going to get through, and we've seen Malcolm Gordon get dropped, get hurt. He is a good wrestler, though, and again, if either guy gets dropped, it's not like the fight gets that much easier because they're both such good grapplers. I just think Albazi has a slight edge in the grappling department that's going to be able to get him the win.
And this is a thing that a lot of people like to do in the comments section. Rag on me if you want. So you're going to look at Malcolm Gordon's last loss and put a ton of stock into it. It was 3 years and 8 months ago. And he fought Dimitri Vardenberg. And listen, Vardenberg fought at bantamweight, fought good competition. In that fight, Gordon stayed on the back foot, did that jab, peppered him with it. Vardenberg threw combinations, really good combinations. 1, 2, 3 calf kick. Before, 3 years, 8 months ago,
he was a hipster.
Before the calf kick was the coolest thing in the world and everybody had to talk about it, including us. So he kept peppering him, and then finally threw another calf kick, got in close, dropped him, finished the fight. Since then, though, if you look at the guys that he's fought, Michael Jordan didn't have an extensive record. That was almost 3 years ago. Then he fights Jordan Graham, who's 2-0. Graham rushed in there. Gordon got him to the mat and finished him. And then the fight before the Sherbatov, James Mancini, 5-3 with TKO. Doesn't really tell you the whole story. Again, he has fought good competition. Sherbatov is good. Claudius is good. It's one of those ones where I think if Malcolm Gordon's going to get the win, and I do think that he's going to be able to get the win, he's going to have to establish cage presence early, push the pace, land those heavy shots, not be on the back foot, content with landing the jab or running around. Again, he has such a good corner to draw from. So does Albazi. This is one of those ones that you could really flip a coin with, but I'm going to side with Malcolm Gordon. You're going to go with Amir Albazi. We spent a lot of time
It's going to be a great fight
on two guys' UFC debuts at flyweight nonetheless, but this is one of the most exciting fights on this card. I say that for a lot of them, but this one, I mean it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, Matt. We got an extended look at our main event, also flyweight, Davison Figueiredo, and a tough test, and Joe B still looking for that elusive gold. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, Matt, and as we always say, let's get into it.